Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why some days you feel completely fine, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, you're overwhelmed with pain and exhaustion? If you or someone you know lives with fibromyalgia, you know that feeling of unpredictable flare-ups all too well today. We're diving into a fascinating new idea about what might be triggering those tough days. It is not just about having fibromyalgia, it is about what is happening in your brain and how it recovers. So, what exactly are these flare-ups? The paper describes them as those periods where your fibromyalgia symptoms suddenly get much worse than usual. For years, doctors and scientists have known about something called central sensitization. Think of it like your nervous system is on high alert, constantly overreacting to pain signals. But this existing idea doesn't fully explain why these flare-ups happen when they do. They seem to come out of nowhere, right? This is where our researchers come in with a new model. They're not trying to explain what causes fibromyalgia itself, but rather what makes those flare-ups suddenly appear. Their idea is that it's a perfect storm of three things happening at once, all building up until your system just can't cope anymore. They call it a neuro-cognitive trigger model. It is like a recipe for a flare-up. The core of their idea rests on three main triggers that can push someone with fibromyalgia into a flare-up. Imagine your brain and body are like a finely tuned machine. This model suggests that if certain conditions are met, that machine can get overloaded, leading to those awful symptom surges. First, you need to have what they call a neurosensitive baseline. This is already a key part of understanding fibromyalgia. It's that underlying state where your central nervous system is just more sensitive. It amplifies pain signals more easily and has a harder time turning them off. So, if you have fibromyalgia, you likely already have this heightened sensitivity. This is like the pre-existing condition that makes you more vulnerable. Now, onto the triggers. The first one is something called high cognitive load. What does that mean? It means your brain is working really hard for a long time. Think about trying to focus intensely on a difficult task, juggling multiple demands, or just having a really mentally draining day. Our brains have a limited capacity for this kind of intense processing. When you are constantly pushing your brain to its limits without a break, it creates a kind of stress on your nervous system. What is happening in your body when your brain is under high cognitive load? The research suggests it can ramp up your sympathetic nervous system, that is your body's fight or flight response. It can reduce your vagal tone, which is important for calming down. Basically, your system gets more aroused and less able to relax. And since pain and arousal are so closely linked in fibromyalgia, this creates a direct pathway to discomfort. The second trigger is what they call emotional background noise. This isn't necessarily about one big, dramatic, stressful event. Instead, it's about that persistent, low-level stress that just hangs around. Maybe it is ongoing worries, unresolved emotional challenges, or chronic relationship strain. This kind of diffuse, background stress keeps your response systems activated even at a subtle level. This persistent emotional arousal can keep your body in a state of low-grade alert. It's like a constant hum of stress that biases your nervous system toward being more reactive. And for people with fibromyalgia, whose stress systems are already prone to dysregulation, this background noise can really lower the threshold for symptoms to flare up. It adds another layer of strain on top of the neurosensitive baseline. So we have a sensitive baseline, high mental effort, and persistent emotional stress. But there is a third crucial piece of the puzzle, zero cooldown or ZCD. This catchy term is meant to highlight a lack of sufficient recovery periods. It is not just if you have bad sleep once, but if you are not getting enough downtime between periods of activation. Our nervous systems need time to recover, to downregulate, to get back to a calm state. This is where sleep plays a huge role, but also just moments of genuine rest and disengagement. Without this cool down time, your nervous system stays activated. Think of it like constantly running a computer without ever shutting it down or letting it rest. It starts to slow down, glitch, and eventually it might just freeze up in fibromyalgia. This recovery failure means that the effects of cognitive load and emotional stress don't simply fade away. They accumulate, leading to a buildup of neural activation. And here is where it all comes together in their proposed model. They suggest that the risk of a flare-up isn't just one thing, but an interaction. It's like this: your neurosensitive baseline is multiplied by the combined impact of high cognitive load and emotional background noise, and then further influenced by the absence of zero cooldown. It is a multiplicative effect, meaning if all these factors are present, the risk can skyrocket. It's important to remember this isn't a strict mathematical formula you can plug numbers into to predict a flare-up. Exactly. It's more of a conceptual tool, a way to understand how these elements work together. When you have a sensitive baseline and you are hit with a lot of mental demands and background stress and you are not getting enough recovery time, that's when a flare up becomes much more likely. Imagine this as a sort of stormy weather forecast for your body. You've got a sensitive environment, the baseline, then comes the buildup of clouds and wind, cognitive and emotional load, and if there is no break in the clouds, no cool down. Eventually, the storm hits, that is the flare-up. So, what does this all mean? This model offers a new way to think about fibromyalgia flare-ups. Instead of just seeing them as random bad days, it frames them as predictable outcomes of specific, interacting neurocognitive processes. It shifts the focus from just a static problem in your nervous system to a dynamic process of activation and recovery failure. This is really important because it helps explain why different people with fibromyalgia experience flare-ups differently. Some might be more sensitive to cognitive load, while others might be more affected by emotional stress. And the amount of recovery they get can also significantly change things. It acknowledges that while the underlying sensitivity might be there, the triggers can be customized in a way. This theoretical model also has big implications for how we actually study fibromyalgia. The researchers suggest that to really test this, we need to use methods that track people in their daily lives over time. Things like ecological momentary assessment, or EMA, where you get checks on your phone throughout the day asking about your stress, your mental effort, and how you are feeling, are perfect for this. This way, we can see in real time how these factors build up and then potentially lead to a flare-up. It is about capturing those dynamic interactions rather than just looking at snapshots. While this model doesn't directly offer new treatments, it does point towards potential areas for intervention. If we know that cognitive load, emotional stress, and recovery failure are key triggers, then strategies to manage these might help reduce flare-ups, even if they don't change the core sensitivity. This could mean things like teaching better stress management techniques, developing strategies to reduce unnecessary cognitive demands, or focusing on improving sleep hygiene and promoting restorative rest. The idea is to try and lower the chances of that perfect storm building up in the first place. The researchers have also laid out some very specific, testable hypotheses. For instance, they predict that in people with fibromyalgia, periods with high cognitive load and emotional background stress will lead to more flare-ups, especially when recovery is poor. They also think that people with higher baseline sensitivity will react even more strongly to these triggers. And importantly, they hypothesize that improving recovery can actually reduce flare-ups, even if the other triggers are still present. Now, as with any research, it is important to acknowledge the limitations. This model is still theoretical, meaning it hasn't been directly tested in large-scale studies yet. The concepts like emotional background noise can also be tricky to measure consistently across different people and studies. This is a model focused specifically on flare-ups, not on the overall cause or treatment of fibromyalgia. And while it heavily emphasizes central nervous system processes, it doesn't discount that other factors like genetics or immune responses might also play a role. The researchers are very clear that this is a starting point, a scaffold for future research. They're not claiming to have all the answers, but rather to have offered a new lens through which to view a complex problem. So, to wrap it up, this neurocognitive trigger model offers a compelling new perspective on fibromyalgia flare-ups. By highlighting the interplay of sustained cognitive load, persistent emotional background stress, and insufficient neural recovery. It provides a framework for understanding the dynamic nature of symptom exacerbation. It moves us beyond simply accepting flare-ups as unpredictable events, and instead offers a glimpse into the neurocognitive processes that might be driving them. This research is incredibly important because it encourages us to think about fibromyalgia not just as a static set of symptoms, but as a condition deeply influenced by our daily cognitive and emotional experiences and our ability to recover. It opens up exciting avenues for future research, and perhaps, eventually, for new ways to help manage these challenging flare-ups. What do you think about this model? Does it resonate with your experience or the experience of someone you know with fibromyalgia? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more dives into the fascinating world of psychology and neuroscience. Well, see you in the next one.